All right, taking a look at some other results coming in here in the 1 p.m. Eastern slate. And wow, the Bucs starting to build a little momentum, coming back from their game abroad with a W, well rested. But back in the loss column here as they fall 23-17 in overtime to the Cleveland Browns. Had a fourth down situation that could have got the defense off the field and likely gotten this game into the win column, or at least giving them a better shot. But Brady suffers his sixth loss of the season. For the first time since 2009, a Tom Brady-led team loses 6 games, which is just another way to say he's been fantastic, and it hasn't been great this season. Tampa Bay now sort of hanging around that wild card or irrelevant conversation at 5-6. Next up, they'll host the Saints on Sunday. All right, let's get into it with Tyler Sullivan and Rick Spielman. Guys, a season hanging in the balance now here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who dropped back below 500 as it sort of felt like things had turned back in the right direction, maybe focus back on the football side of things here for Tom Brady. But you suffer a tough loss in a really important spot of this season, Rick. What does a loss like this mean for the Buccaneers and their playoff hopes?
Well, everybody was excited about the direction Tampa Bay was going. They had that big win against the LA Rams, although the LA Rams aren't very good this year. Then they go all the way to Germany and play a Seattle team that was playing very well. And in fact, they ran the ball on a Seattle defense that was maybe playing the best defense in the NFL over the past 4 weeks before that game. When they're able to run the ball, control the clock, and let Tom Brady make plays in the air based off how they're running the ball, I thought that was going to be the formula on how they're going to win games. What I seen today was, and just like in the past, Tom Brady's record this year is 2-5, and I believe 2-6 if he throws for the ball over 40 times a game. Today, he had 43 attempts, and I understand it went into overtime. But in order for Tampa to get back in this, now they're playing in a really soft, or I guess maybe the worst division in football right now, if you want to put it mildly. So they still have a chance to win that division and get in the playoffs. But they're going to have to be able to run the ball for them to be a thing if they do get in the playoffs.
Yeah, putting the NFC as soft is very much putting it mildly. It stinks. No one's any good. The winner of that division, it seems like they're just going to be there by default. And that includes the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who just seem to feel like they can't seize the opportunity. Yes, it felt like they turned the tides of the season, beating the Los Angeles Rams in that overtime, or not that overtime, but that last second win. You go and you face a Seattle team that has been cooking on all cylinders. You're able to beat them abroad. I think the bye week is the worst place time for them this season, because it felt like everything was moving, and then all of a sudden you get a week off and you're kind of sitting on your hands a little bit. I would have liked the Buccaneers to be able to kind of continue that momentum. So for me, I think that don't sleep on that bye week being a pivotal moment for them. And you talk about not being able to run the football. Yeah, they had a big 35-yard run in this game by Rachaad White, but other than that, this team averaged 3.2 yards per carry. That's just not going to be good enough. And so when you can't run the football and you really can't get anybody else going other than Chris Godwin, I think Mike Evans only had a couple of catches in this game, was really a non-factor for them throughout the afternoon. That's what's going to kill you. Obviously, the defense gave up that bad touchdown towards the end, but ultimately it comes down to the offense. You can't punt on your final 6 possessions, including overtime. You're just going to lose every single football game that you play if you do that.
Yeah, this Bucs team, despite the loss, still sitting there atop that lowly division. Tyler Sullivan, Rick Spielman, we appreciate the insights as always. And here's a look at some of those struggles for Tom Terrific, who really has been anything but this season. First 6+ loss season since 2009, so a decade plus of sheer dominance, whether that be in a Patriots uniform or a Buccaneers uniform, in his first career or his second career or his third. I guess this is his third. The third hasn't been great. 5th career loss in overtime, 13-5 in such games. Also, his first career loss went yards short of what would have been a new NFL record 67-yard field goal. Appeared to be some win, but no excuses here as the Baltimore Ravens drop one and fall to 7-4 on the season. And there's a logjam there at 7-4 now in that AFC playoff picture. Jacksonville, meanwhile, they get their 4th win of the season, and a whole lot of better feelings coming out of this one, especially around their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, who was 29 of 37 for 321, 3 touchdowns, none bigger than the late gamer, Marcus Jones. All right, let's break it down with the guys, fellas. Exciting finish there between the Ravens and the Jaguars. The stats, the trends, everything tells us that this Ravens team should and will be a dominant one. But here, again, they play with their food a little bit, and they end up getting clipped finally here. What do you make of this performance here? Because, again, everything, Tyler, we're told is that this Ravens team is great. The stats tell us they're dominant. Why haven't they been dominant thus far?
Well, I think if you look at this game in particular, it's execution in the red zone. 2 for 5 today. That's just unacceptable. If you get to the red zone 5 times, you need to have a better percentage than that, especially when you have Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, weapons like that. And they run first team. You should be able to ground and pound your way into the end zone there. So for me, it starts and ends with their ability to, once they get into the red area, convert. Don't just opt for Justin Tucker to save you, as he almost did with that 67-yard attempt at the end of regulation. You don't want him. You want to use him for those situations. You don't necessarily want him when you're at the, inside the 10, inside the 20. You want to be able to utilize Lamar Jackson and get that home. So for me, that's the biggest thing. And you look at this Ravens team. We looked at them a few weeks ago and said they could go on a run here. They are right there in terms of record-wise in the AFC. They seem to have a hold a little bit on the AFC North, and they have the easiest remaining schedule in the entire NFL. Now they're starting to kind of falter here. They're not taking advantage of that opportunity. So it's kind of a big picture thing as we look at that red zone thing. They're not taking advantage of their opportunities that they have in front of them, and that's what results in losses here.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with that. Lamar Jackson was throwing, he's 50% today, 16 of 32. And I had to go back and look at their roster on who the heck he's throwing it to. I know Mark Andrews is there and Duvernay's there, but who else is there? I believe they just elevated Jackson up because they don't have any weapons for him to throw to. But what I want to flip it over to is Trevor Lawrence, because I knew when we watched that London game a few weeks ago when they lost and Trevor Lawrence had an opportunity to come in and win that game on the final drive and threw that poor interception right before the half at the 1-yard line and took the intentional grounding period. He came back today and showed that this is why they drafted him as the #1 overall pick, and he has evolved under Doug Peterson through this year and continues to get better. And I think this is a signature game for him, not only to bring the team from behind, but for him to make some clutch throws, to throw that 2-point conversion to win at the end of the game. I know they missed a 67-yard field goal, but the evolution of Trevor Lawrence, they may get on a little run here, not good enough to get to the playoffs. Even when ETN was not very effective today by Baltimore's defense, held him in check, Trevor Lawrence went out and won the game, and good for him today. My biggest concern is the weapons that Baltimore has on the offensive side of the ball. Lamar Jackson could beat you with his legs, but can he beat you with his arm?
Yeah, you trade away Hollywood Brown there for picks and positioning, and here they are with a little bit of a dearth of offensive firepower on the outside. But as you said here for Jacksonville, a major stone for Trevor Lawrence and this team to build upon. They're sitting at 4-7 right now, guys, but a positive point differential. And I know we can frame this a million different ways to say a million different things, but as you take stock of who the Jacksonville Jaguars are right now, Tyler, ahead of schedule, behind schedule, right on schedule, how are you feeling about Jacksonville at 4-7?
Yeah, I would put them right on schedule. Again, if this was a team that all of a sudden was starting to contend in the AFC South, you'd say, oh, wow, okay, they're sprouting a little bit early here. But overall, you do see the potential, as you guys were just talking about with Trevor Lawrence. You do see those flashes of why he was the #1 overall pick and why he is looked at as a generational type prospect. And so for me, after you had that crazy circumstance with Urban Meyer last year, the fact that you bring in a guy like Doug Peterson, I think changes the entire trajectory of this franchise. And you even see it there. That's a gutsy call to go for 2 in that spot, go for the win. But you're feeling that Ravens defense kind of on their heels a little bit. You feel Trevor Lawrence and that offense cooking. Yeah, you go for that in that situation. And that is all up to Urban Meyer and that, excuse me, not Urban Meyer. He wouldn't go for it. They'd probably end up losing this game. Doug Peterson would be the one to make that call. Again, Super Bowl winning head coach. That changes the entire culture. That changes the entire way that this organization moves. And so for me, the fact that they're able to get that coaching hire right is going to result in more wins for this Jaguars team in years to come.
Yeah, and just following up, I was down there at training camp, and you can tell the energy and excitement these players had from what they had last year under Urban Meyer, and the way that Doug Peterson treated them as professionals, and those guys were buying in to what Doug Peterson was selling and his coaching staff. I think, like I said, they may be a year or two away before they get into serious consideration about being a contender in the AFC, but you see it building and taking steps forward each week in the right direction. And how many games have they lost this year where they could have easily have won because it came down to one-score situations? So I think as they continue to evolve, I think as that culture continues to change and go in the right direction, they've done a great job bringing in players. They have good players, but they don't have like great playmakers, Pro Bowlers on the outside to help Trevor Lawrence. But when Trevor Lawrence plays like this, it tells you that this franchise has a chance to be pretty special.